morning, Roxy Soxy.
Good morning, Tom Tom.
Do you know what I did this morning?
What did you do?
Your worst fear become realized. What do you hate the most in the entire world?
Does it have to do with a needle and blood?
It has to do with the needle, and no, it was not in my face. It was in my arm, which sounds even worse. Was it heroin? No, it wasn't heroin. I got my blood taken because I realized that I haven't gotten a physical for so long because of this coronavirus, and I'm so afraid to actually go into any place for the fear of I think to myself, there are people in the doctor's office who have had coronavirus, and now I'm that much closer to it, So I haven't been getting physicals, and now I did.
Oh my God. Well, congratulations. I'm very proud of you. You took one for the team. Does that count for me too? Now, do I not need to get blood drawn, please?
Yeah, but when it was coming out, it didn't. Oh, there was no flow of blood because I was so dehydrated because we weren't allowed to eat before. And the whole time I was thinking Roxy would hate this. Roxy would hate this. She would not be okay. And I thought about you sweating. So you were with me.
Okay, good. Well, I also have some breaking news to tell you about this week.
You're pregnant.
Even better. That too. After 7 months this week, not since February, I decided to take a big step. I got my hair done.
Roxy, I swear to God, I was like, what is it? What is she doing? Has she become sober?
Oh, hell no. But I did get my hair cut and colored, which is, thank you. I'm so excited. I feel like a new woman.
You do feel like a new woman. And guess who we have here who also looks amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about our guest who we have the pleasure of having on our show, who I just did her show last week and I fell in love with her. So what's going on, Roxy?
Oh my God, Tammin, I love this woman. She is a force. She is an actress. She is a red carpet host. She's a comedian. She's a producer. She's a mom. She's
philanthropist. She's
philanthropist. She's all the things. She is a dynamo. We've known her, and I'm just so excited that she's finally here on our show. We loved her the whole time. So welcome, Melissa Rivers.
Hi. And I feel like Roxy, I'm so happy to meet you because I feel like Tammin's my new best friend.
Oh my God.
I was so excited to have you on my show.
I know. It was so nice to talk to you. And we were talking about happiness and this journey of self-love. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because I think we're both, and Roxy too, she can tell me if she's not, but I think we're on this journey of really trying to find true happiness. And I do think that comes from the genesis of self-love. And that's something that I'm working on. And we talked on your podcast about that. And it started off my week, really thinking about how I can be kinder and more graceful to myself with the lessons that I learned on your show. So thank you. How's it all going for you?
Well, like I discussed also on my show of my years and years and years of self-loathing. And I am very proud to say I actually am still in the same place.
I'm still self-loathing.
I have so many years of unraveling to do. But one tries, so just like anybody, some days are better than others, but I just want to roll back to two things. One is, oh my God, I can't believe the blood wouldn't come out.
That sounds kind of like something else. I'm like, what?
Right. But seriously, I've never heard of that, but
yeah, it just wouldn't come out. It just stopped.
Oh,
and she kept moving the needle. She kept moving the needle into my vein. She was like, "Well, maybe this position works." And when someone's like, they talk about how good they are at drawing blood. Then it's always those people who are like, "Oh, I do this all the time. I'm good at it. No one ever has an issue." And it's always those freaking people that I'm like, I'm still in pain from the blood being drawn.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have a big old bruise. And Roxy, your hair looks fantastic. I have to say, I have had my hair cut and colored. First I did my own touch-ups, my own root kit, but then I had them come to my house and outside and we all wore masks because I literally could not take it anymore. I literally was I couldn't take it.
Yes. No, I literally, I mean, and you feel like such a new woman. You feel like empowered after you get your hair done. There's something about like working on this part of your body that you just feel like you can walk into a room and take over and like conquer the world, you know?
Exactly. Especially because like I'm terrible at doing my own hair.
Oh my God, me too. Awful.
You would think after all of these years of literally almost being born on stage. My mother is an urban legend, but it's actually true. Went into labor on stage.
She did?
Yeah. But one would think I would be better at hair and makeup, considering I've literally been in the business since conception. And I am personally one of those people who's an absolute disaster at it.
Oh, I was about to say, like, tell us about that experience, but I was like, but you were the baby.
I was the baby.
How did it feel?
Yeah, exactly. I was the baby.
Did a water break on stage?
No, but I came early.
Right.
And so she was just like, felt something and kept going, and then felt a stronger contraction and was like, wow. And like stopped for a second, caught her breath, and then finished the show.
like a warrior. Yes, exactly. Like the warrior that she was. She's probably so funny too the whole time. Like up until she got off.
Well,
right?
Also, those days you had to get through a certain amount of your show to get paid. So she looked at her watch.
That's amazing.
And she said she went home, had a sandwich, told my dad what was happening. They went back to sleep, and I was born at like 2 the next afternoon.
Wow. Yeah. So that's how you made your entrance into this world.
Exactly. But as I was saying, you would think I'd be better at hair and makeup, but I'm not. I am one of those people who's just challenged in that area of my life.
No. So tell me, obviously people talk. I'd ask you all the time what it was like to have Joan Rivers as a mother, but tell us really what growing up next to her, because you guys are best friends. So it seemed like you were best friends. Did it feel like she was like someone who you could talk to about everything, or did she still feel like that parental figure?
Well, it's very funny. It was very much a role reversal in our house. First of all, people was like, what was it like growing up with Joan Rivers, your mom? Which I was like, I don't know. She was always my mother. I have nothing to compare it to.
Right.
It's not like I went next door to the Schwartz house and lived there and said, oh, well, that's what this is like. Nah, I'm going to go back to mine. I think the perception of my mother, who was very much a character on stage, was very different off stage. I grew up in a very traditional household where we sat down for dinner every night, properly sat down, not just like grab and go. The phones were turned off. It was, time to discuss and be a family. And I was expected to, even though we had the housekeeper and the houseman, I still had to clear the table. It was there were expectations. I know we're not supposed to have expectations anymore with our children. There were expectations. I was to get good grades. I was to be polite. I was to, it was a very, very, very traditional house. That being said, I was also a very typical teenager who, it wasn't like, oh, I can talk to my mom about everything. And when you have a mother like mine who was like spewing everything out on stage, you never wanted to give her more material.
She would call you out.
Yeah.
Don't tell her my secrets.
Right. Yeah. But also it became, my friends used to make fun of me and whatever, because my mom would making jokes regardless. We were very close. She shared more with me, I think, than I ever really wanted. Especially as an adult, I did not need to know about her sex life.
Oh my gosh.
And I would just be like, yeah, I gotta go. It's still your parents. You're still like,
was it real details, or do you think
no,
it was like
just like she's like, no, it would be like she was seeing someone. She's like, well, we've started sleeping together. And I'd be like, oh my gosh.
I think I do that.
I need to leave the room now. But yeah, I mean, we were, my father died when I was 18, right before I turned 19. So, we went through a very bad phase after that, but we came back together, and every relationship, every healthy relationship with a parent, especially a mother and a daughter, should have its ups and downs. If it's perfect all the time, there's someone's keeping something wrong. it's always the perfect family that you find out later that someone's wearing women's underpants and this one's anorexic and that one's, it's the perfect ones you should always be scared of. That to me, that means there's something wrong. Like if I have a friend who says, my parents have never fought, and I'm like, well, just not in front of you, you know,
Right.
but I was like, there's something dark and wrong going on there because I think, I'm not saying like parents should be screaming at each other, but I'm saying it's also really healthy for kids to see
human.
You can argue with someone you love and make up.
Right.
Like my parents always, that's my last thought I have is my parents always used to say to me when they would be mad at me is, we will always love you, but we don't like you very much right now.
Now, did you rebel growing up? Or like, were you sneaking? Okay, but like, what level of rebelliousness? Like, were you sneaking out of the house, or were you like?
We had security, we had bodyguards, so it made sneaking out of the house a little more complicated.
I love it.
But I raised my fair share of hell and got away with so much more than I ever should have.
You said it was a hard time, obviously, when your father passed away, because he committed suicide. And I can't even fathom what that would do to a child. I can't even fathom the post-traumatic stress that you had to deal with and probably for the rest of your life. You said that you and your mother had a hard time after that happened. So why was that? Was there tell me about that?
Well, suicide is complicated. And being a suicide survivor, meaning someone that they love who has killed themselves, whether it be friend, family, whatever. There's a lot of anger. And it's a lot of free floating anger. And just due to the circumstances, I had a lot of anger towards my mother. And
blame her?
Yeah. Did you blame her?
I blamed everybody.
Okay.
No one was safe from my anger. It was everybody's fault, which is very common. When you talk to someone who's lost someone to suicide, it's very, very common. There's a number of things that are very common. So it was very complicated. And also she was, suddenly her Fox late night show had been canceled. My father had killed himself. She felt like she didn't have a career. She didn't have anything. And at one point she said, she couldn't deal with me. So she's like, I have to cut you loose. I cannot help you I can't save you till I save myself. And, would I have chosen those words? Probably not. But it's funny because as an adult, I know what she was trying to say. But as a 19-year-old, I'm only hearing, I
don't love you, right?
I don't love you. And I'm cutting you.
You're not enough, right? You're not good enough, right?
Well, also not even that you're not good enough. I don't have time for you.
Right.
I'm dealing with me. And yes, and I think it was a very, very hard time. And we didn't talk for a while. And the only time we would talk would be in therapy.
Wow.
But again, it's so funny though, because as an adult and as a parent, I completely understand what she was trying to say. But as a teenager, you don't hear that. As an adult, she was trying to say, I'm here, I love you, but I have to deal with these things. As a teenager, you hear abandonment. And I've already just lost my father to suicide, which, obviously terrible abandonment issues.
Yeah. So what
brought us back together?
Yeah. I was just about to say.
I had a college boyfriend that became extremely violent.
Wow. Okay. And so you needed your mom. You went back to your mom.
I called her and said,
Okay. Wow. And what was her immediate sort of response?
I'm on my way.
Wow.
Because again, we had been talking in therapy. But again, it goes back to with suicide, there is so much what I used to call free floating anger.
Okay.
Because it's so hard to get your brain around it. It's got to be somebody's fault.
Okay.
And you blame yourself. You blame this. And you get to a point though where I got was, and a friend of mine, a boyfriend from college at the time said to me, not the one that was violent, said to me, just because you are angry at your dad doesn't mean you loved him any less. And that stuck with me. Look, it's 30 something years later. And for me, that's a big part of it is part of when you lose someone to suicide, one of the things you do is you put them on a pedestal, and you lose complete any kind of clarity of what the actual person was. They suddenly become flawless. And, but that's very common when someone dies. You make them this flawless person rather than the human they were. And I remember thinking to myself, and I say that all the time, and I can say it now, I love my father. I still miss my father. I adored my father. I was very much daddy's girl as much as I was mommy's girl. But I think what he did was really fucked up. Well, doesn't mean I respect him. It doesn't mean I respect him any less or love him any less. I'm just clear on I think the choice he made was really fucking shitty.
I mean, anger is not a primary emotion. We all learn that in therapy, right? Anger comes from such pain. That's where it comes from, and hurt. And, I think about people who choose suicide, and, I think about the fact that that's the only option because they're in that much pain.
Yes.
And I think that the only way, I've never had anything like that happen to me. So I probably shouldn't say this, but maybe it's just like forgiveness. And maybe it comes from a place of like empathy that that pain must have been so great that they couldn't spend one more day.
Absolutely. You say it in a much more eloquent fashion, I think, but you're dead on. It's like, and again, that's something that you learn. And that's something that you have to start to figure out, like, oh, I feel worse about the pain that he must have been in than I think I do the pain I went through.
Because it wasn't about you. That's the thing. Like, he still loved you. Like, if the thing is, when you're going through it, it's very hard to, as much as on the outside you can profess that, it's very hard to actually believe it. And it literally, just like any kind of grief, it just takes time.
And it must come in waves too. Like, some days must be better than others, right?
Well, it's been 30 something years.
Right.
So,
does it still feel fresh though sometimes to you, or?
No, it doesn't feel fresh. Things become very bittersweet. I think about him on his birthday. I think about him on his holidays. It was hard when I got married. It was really hard one of the hardest was when I had my son.
Of course.
That was very hard for me. But it's just like all loss and all grieving. It eventually does get to a place where it's bittersweet, and everybody's on their own timeline. And I think that's something that people lose sight of when they're in sort of the throes of it, is, you know what, you're going to be okay. And whenever I have a friend who loses someone and I call, I'm like, I'm not going to candy coat it. This sucks. And you are going to be sad and lonely and angry and unhappy. And it's awful and it's terrible and nothing good. There's nothing good about this, but you're going to be okay.
You were close to both of your parents. And now that they both passed, do you feel like you ever get signs from them? Like, do you ever feel like, oh, that was my mom, like a little something like that reminds you of her, or your dad?
The voice that's always squawking behind me. Like, literally, I'll be doing something and I'll be like, God, I can hear her fucking telling me, like, and there's days I want to turn around and just go, shut up. I'm not interested in your opinion, but I think everybody has that with your parents. You know what I mean? I think that's ingrained in anybody who had strong parents or close with their parents, that you hear them in your head all the time. I actually had a moment during COVID where I was up in the middle of the night and I walked through my bathroom and where my bathrobe was hanging. And I swear to God, I smelled my mom.
Wow.
And I put on my bathrobe and I'm like, oh my God, I smell her. I'm like, my whole area, like, oh my God, I'm like, oh my God, I smell. So of course I go and wake up in the middle of the night, my son, and go, what does this smell like? Oh my God, Cooper, what does this smell like? He's like, smells like grandma. I go, oh my God, Cooper, it smells like grandma. He goes, everything smells like grandma. I'm like, I know. No, it's our detergent. So I go in my room and I pull out a t-shirt. I'm like, smells like grandma's fucking detergent. I thought I was having this profound moment visitation to the point where I wake up my son. I'm like, baby, she's here.
Do you believe
go to bed, crazy mommy?
Do you believe that there is an afterlife? And do you believe that she's somewhere else and that you'll see her again? Or is that something that you navigate daily and that changes?
I think for me, it changes daily. Mm-hmm. My mother didn't believe in an afterlife.
Okay.
Right.
She just believed you were energy, and energy then just got dispersed. She did not have a strong belief in anything like that. Mm-hmm. Yet she believes that she had signs from her mom and she had signs from my dad.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know. I think about that. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'm like, when I'm doing something and if maybe my gut says it's not right or I'm not sure, I'll be like, give me a sign. And I'm like, don't give me a fucking sign because it will scare the crap out of me.
I mean, like, it's funny because people say, like, even, you know, in the environment, like there's butterflies and birds and storms and all these things that seem to happen at that. And I don't know if it's like that thing that we do where it's coincidence and then we make it a sign or it is actually something. I mean, and that's the thing about when people say, well, I definitely know that that's my mom or my dad. I mean, no one does know. I think that that's what we need to realize is no one has any clue, but maybe it's okay to believe that your mom is still here in some form, in some way, because it makes you feel more connected to something. And
comforted too, you know?
Comforted.
Right. There was one experience that Cooper and I were together for that we were both like, that's grandma.
What happened? What was it?
We go to Wyoming every year and there's a particular ranch that we go to. And again, I think we both also, again, it was like a coincidence, but we made it into something more. I don't know, but we've gone there as a family for the last 12 years consecutively. And it was the last place we were there 3 weeks before my mom died. And it's somewhere that my mother really loved. And it was very much like our family time. And it's a really special place to us. And we were riding by a fence line just at the walk, leaving the main corral area. And there was this, they have magpies. And there was
aggressive.
Yeah.
They can be aggressive.
But they were, I think it was, I'm not sure if it was, I think it was a magpie. And it kept flying from one fence post to the other and stopping and one next fence post and next fence post all the way till we got off the property. When we were riding. And Cooper is like, I'm like, he's like, are you noticing this? I'm like, yeah, I am. He's like, it's grandma. So, which considering it was a magpie was kind of,
because they're so feisty. Do you know that? Like in Australia, in my school, I went to this girls' school and we had these big brimmed hats, and that's why I said they're feisty and aggressive because they would come for you, but like they weren't there to attack you. They were just there to make their presence known. So it was like, I'm here, and then they would go, and then they'd be like, I'm here. So
they're
always,
black.
run away from.
Right, they're black.
Black.
Yeah, and they're like medium sized.
Yeah, but
yeah. So I think it's a magpie, but and then I always think of like my childhood. You remember the cartoons Heckle and Jekyll?
Yeah.
The two, yeah. So I'm like, this bird just sort of flew from one and stayed right with us the whole way till we were past this particular fence line and heading out further into our ride.
Were there any particular life lessons that you remember from your mom, that something that she really wanted you to kind of go forth in life with?
Marry rich.
the best advice.
For love, second for money. What is it? Sex or something?
No, you marry the first time for love, the second time. Wait, no.
Always the second time
for money, second time for love.
Oh, shit.
See, we got it reversed, Tammy.
I did too.
Did you too? Yeah. Okay.
I always go with my heart. My freaking heart.
Yeah, or I think it's first time for love, second time for money. That's it. Whatever it is. So yeah, I'm looking for the money now.
Exactly. We got to go for the wallet. Okay.
Fuck it. None of us are getting any younger. I know what I want. I'm not going to be upset with a private plane.
Yeah, that would be a nice Christmas gift. So you and I were talking on your show about like looks and how, even I was talking about the fact that when I look a certain way and I I don't think I'm getting older or like I see wrinkles, then I love myself more. Do you think that because your mom was constantly looking her best and getting plastic surgery, do you think that affected you in your way of like always trying to be perfect and wanting to be perfect because your mom always looked perfect? Mm-hmm. And the problem with perfectionism is like we can never really, I feel like it's something that it's a brass ring that we never ever get to. So do you think that fuels that self-loathing that you were talking about? Is that perfectionism that maybe you saw in your mom because she was always so put together?
Well, I think it was more sorry. I think it was more again, we go back to expectations. Mm-hmm. And I do feel that people don't raise their children with enough expectations now. I think part of it for me, though, was I think I internalized a lot of it as, you know, and I think a lot of it has to do with my professional choices and just different things. And that, you know, I always felt like I never lived up. I never was quite there. And by the way, and my mother would look at me and say, you were loved regardless. You were told you were amazing all the time. And I'm like, not so much. But that was a difference. That's a different, you know, that I think it's also the business we're in. Right. But I know for me personally, and I know my son's like, you expect me to be perfect. I'm like, oh my God, am I repeating these things? And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just saying that you have to try your hardest. You know, but I think we also are raising children. I know your children are young. You know, it goes back to the participation trophy issue. Well, yeah, I want my fourth grader to get a trophy. Come on, they love it. Cooper loved it. But I think at one point we also have to explain to our children that past a certain point, you have to earn the reward. And I feel like we lose a lot of that. And I think also, I mean, if we really want to go sort of into the weeds, I think media now, especially with all these sort of celebrity and people being famous for just kind of nothing or being
just their face, like doing something silly on TikTok
or their butt.
I think that's a bad message as well, because for me, so much of what you should be doing is working towards a goal and trying to better yourself and do well at what you do. Rather than you shouldn't just be like, well, I want to be famous and put up, you know, your boobs on TikTok.
And we're rewarding that. That's the problem. We're giving people so much money to not do anything that takes that much work.
And that's why I think like with younger children now, it's like, yes, I do believe like at a certain age, they should get the participation trophies. I think that's just, that's sweet and that's fun. And the truth is they cry if they don't. You give it to them, they're happy. You take the picture and 10 minutes later,
they've forgotten about it, right?
They've forgotten about it, but you have the cute picture. But I do think, especially that's a place where it really starts. Like you need to be rewarded for achievement in certain ways. And I think we allow sort of this everybody wins mentality go too far into our children's lives without them actually having to earn it.
You know, it's a tricky...
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does. And I think you're absolutely right about that. And it's a tricky place where we are because we're all raising kids in Hollywood, you know, as much as, and it's a thing where I know for me, and I know Tammin and I have talked about this, like, I want to be proud of what I do and show that to my daughter and be like, it's great. You know, I love it. I'm passionate about it. It's wonderful. But at the same time, it's like, you also want to kind of protect them from, because you know, the ugly side of the entertainment business and the entertainment world and all the trappings of it. So how did you do it, Melissa? Like with your son, like how did you obviously he was around you guys, he was around your mom, like when you guys were all doing your thing, but at the same time, you kind of protected him a little bit too, right?
Well, I really took a page out of my parents' parenting playbook, which was at home. It was real life and fake life. And there was a real distinction of real life and fake life. You know, again, it was always, you know, it's the end of my mom's life. And this is something that my therapist thinks isn't so healthy, but it happens to me anyway. This endless sense of gratitude. And my mother used to say, look at me, I'm 80 years old and they're still sending limos for me. Isn't this fantastic? And I got into this place where like I pull up to my house and I have gates. And every time I pull up to my house, I think to myself, oh my God, I'm so lucky that I live in a house with beautiful gates. So one day when I have nothing and it's all over, I can always say that I lived in a house with beautiful gates. And I think, you know, as my therapist has said, the way my mother thought of it was a little bit more positive.
You're like, I'm going to lose everything. When is this shoe going to drop? Yeah. Like, when are they going to find out?
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's especially, you know, I mean, I know you guys have younger children. It's about grounding. It's about understanding. It's about understanding that what we do for a living, fake life, real life. My mother, my dad always had me at work. So I always knew it was work. You know, I had Cooper in December and I was back on the red carpet in January for the Golden Globes, and I just picked him up under my arm and like, bud, you're going to find out what it's like. And, you know, he, some of his best memories, it was in the early days when he was little, we would take a soccer ball and before everyone got to the carpet and they still had the plastic down, he would run up and down playing soccer and kicking the ball to wear him out up and down the red carpet. And, it was so funny because people were doing their tech checks and all the guys with jibs would chase him with the jib. So it was, you know, so for him, it was fun, but you know, we were going to work. He used to say in the mornings, but he still says it. What time do we have to get up? He's always like, what's our call time?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not worried as much about with my kids being in Hollywood, like Roxy was saying about protecting that part of it. What I worry more about is this aesthetic beauty standard that we are all trying to upkeep, and I feel like it can it can become a slippery slope. And my kids are really, I think that they're pretty kids. And I worry that it's already like, you know, every time my daughter walks into a room, it's like, oh, you have such beautiful hair. Oh, you're so pretty, you know, and it's like, so what happens is she's going to be at school and then someone's going to tease her because they're going to say, oh, you've got, you know, a chubby arm, whatever they say. And then all of a sudden she's picking herself apart. And I don't know what to do as a mother because I've been there. I had, you know, really terrible eating disorders growing up and terrible body self-loathing. And there's nothing your parents can do. And that's what scares me because I'm trying to give her as many tools as I can on my end. But sometimes just girls growing up, and especially in today's world, hopefully it's different now because there is more talk about like different body types and things like that. Hopefully she'll have enough self-worth and self-confidence. And I don't really know where that starts from because she's already starting to say like, on the Lion Guard, she was watching the Lion Guard and they said, you know, chubby. And she was like, oh, mommy, I don't want to be chubby. I want to be skinny. And I thought, wait a second, hold up. I make sure because I'm aware. Awareness is the first step, right? I'm aware that I don't want my body issues to play any part in her life. So I'm like, you know what? Every time I don't feel good about myself, I do not say it out loud. So she's getting these messages from the world and she'll start getting them from other people too, and other kids and other peers and TV shows and billboards and social media where the girls are sucking their stomach in. And that to me keeps me up at night. And it's funny because my husband, he doesn't like other things keep him up at night. Like, oh my gosh, they'll have sex at some point. I'm like, that's not the problem. Like,
oh, it will be. Trust me,
it will enjoy. Like, you know, be careful. I have
a 19-year-old. Trust me, that will start keeping you up at night at some point.
I mean, I want her to be safe and I want her to talk to me about sex and I don't want her to be scared and like, I want her to like feel good in her body. But like, I know that the body image and how you feel about yourself and your face is such an issue and it starts so young.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it permeates all of us. I mean, you have it. I have it. Right. We all walk into the room.
Why do women? Why? It bugs me.
I think we talk about it more, but I think it's something that's always been there.
It's always been there. But
and think of like all the movie stars from the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, and they were all gorgeous and this and you know, and then you read about like what the lighting was done and what makeup was like and, you know, this one and that one, those amazing Harrell glamour shots. And you realize it was all smoke and mirrors for the most part. I mean, these were still beautiful women. So I think it's always been there. I think we just are more aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
How do we combat it? I don't know. My son grew late.
Mm-hmm.
So we went through a lot of the being short stuff. Now he's 5'10" and a half, 5'11". But he struggled and it was hard. And you just have to support them and drum it into them that they're great and it doesn't matter. And, at one point I remember I snapped and was like, well, then the people who are saying what to you, they're just a bunch of fucking assholes.
Yeah.
Fuck them. Which doesn't make them feel much better, but it's an honest answer. But it's hard.
It's hard.
It's really, really hard.
We've got another layer too now, I feel like, with social media.
Social media is
right? It's a bear because it is so good in so many ways. But it can also be very ugly too. And it's like, you've got the filters and you've got the Facetune and, you have these like, especially these teenagers and these preteens walking around, like wanting the world to be a filter, and like wanting to look one way when in reality, most people don't wake up looking like, Valencia or whatever those the name of the filter, name your one,
I'm glad you know your filter, Roxy.
Yeah.
Well, I have looked at them before.
I have to check out Valencia now.
Check out Valencia.
It always looks better in black and white.
I know. Yes, it does. Black and white hides a multitude of sins.
It really does at all times.
But it's like those filters don't even look like, I said to my husband the other day, I said, because there's this girl I follow, which I'm going to unfollow because, again, I know it's all fake, and then I sit and don't like myself, but I know it's not reality. But your brain knows it, but your body still feels like, oh my gosh, and your emotions still connect to some form of unreality, and you make yourself feel bad about yourself. But I said to my husband, I said, "Do you think this girl's pretty?" Well, I didn't say that. I said, like, what do you think about this girl? And he's like, wow, like she's like, she's va-va-voom or whatever. She has so manipulated her photos to the point of like, and again, just be, if there's more just normality of like, I mean, me, I have cellulite, I have rolls, I have all that stuff. And I really make a point not to filter and Facetune because I think people look up to you to go like, oh, if she looks like that, then like I have to starve myself when I don't look like that. You know what I mean? So this girl has like sucked in her waist and pulled out her butt and all this kind of stuff. But if that's what she's doing on the photos, what is her mind? Where's her mind at? Like, what does her mind think about herself? And that's something that I don't want to be a part of.
I know that for me, because I am incredibly hard on myself. And I think that's also coming from workaholic parents and never feel like I'm working enough. When my mom used to say to me, what is wrong with you? I'm like, well, look at you. Like and she's like, no, I'm not normal. She's like, she's like, stop. My level of crazy work is not normal. So she's like, even if you're 75% of that, you're still a workaholic. So she was always very clear because I used to be like, I'm not working hard enough. So you have to think about the fact that what are they doing? They're trying to make a living. I don't know. I feel like some of the messages that we get are just so
conflicting
because we're being told be yourself. Like I said, I'm at the point where when they would send me, like, if we did like a photo shoot and they would send me like the proofs to sign off on some, I got to the point where I wouldn't look at them if they weren't retouched. Like my publicist would go through them, my assistant would go through them, and then let me look after the retouched photos because I would flip my shit every time I saw an unretouched photo.
I mean, and look at you, you're freaking gorgeous. Like that shows you how hard you can be on yourself, right?
I don't see it at all, but I don't think any of us see it.
No.
Do you think it's possible to love your perceived flaws? That was such an Australian word. Flaws. That sounded so New York.
It was a little
flaws,
New York. Your accent is hilarious because like your accent slips every now and
again. I know, but it's not slipping. It's just kind of it. This is my weird accent that comes out.
But then all of a sudden, suddenly she was like dual in New York.
New York.
New York. You know, I think it's really tricky too. Like what you're just saying, Tammin, is like, it's a slippery slope. Like, and this is what's been hard for me. You cannot compare yourself to other people. You have to be able to like sort of pull yourself out of that. Like you were saying, looking at the other girls, you know, Instagram, and I know how you get. Because I know you start looking at things and you start like going into yourself. And I think that that's tricky and you can't do that. You got to just be like, okay, listen, this girl is doing whatever. And she is like, it sucks and it's hard and it does not, I mean, you want to sit there and be like, what the fuck is she doing? But you got to just put it to the side and be like, that chick is not me, like not me. And you're on this path, you know?
For me, when I get compare-y, what you were saying is when like, you know, someone gets a movie role. I mean, that to me, it's less about like, oh my God, this person looks so hot. It's really less about that. For me, it's like, oh, that person got the job that I wanted, or that person got the campaign that I wanted, or the person's like going to the vacation I've always wanted to take my kids to. It's like that kind of comparison, which is like, you know, drinking poison and expecting somebody else to die. That's kind of what comparison.
Especially, I like that you brought up work, because I'm always like, well, why didn't I get that job? Why didn't they call
it's
my
always
agent?
work. It's work for me all the time. And it's like, why didn't they choose me? And like, I have to be really careful to do that obsessive Instagram like flick through because and the other apps aren't the same for me, but there's something about like everything's like, I don't feel like it's inspiration. It's like like you want to be them, you know? And I think that sometimes when it's aspirational and you want to be them, you don't want to be yourself. And then that's the problem. That's where the problem lies, is when you go, oh, I don't want to be me. I want to be them. That's tricky for me.
I get that too. There's a couple of websites and blogs that I follow. I'm like, I don't look like that on vacation. You know, and they're posing and they're tan and their legs are long and they have the hat and the great bathing suit and like the perfect little cover up. And they, you know, and it's like, look at us, we're having fun. I'm thinking, have you ever seen me on frickin' vacation? Like, I probably haven't combed my hair. I have like, you know, you get like the sunscreen stuck in like the creases of like places on your face, rubbed on so much, you know. I'm in a bathing suit that will not fall off when I am surfing or chasing my child, or, you know, just when he was younger. And, you know, it's like, I don't look like that on vacation. And I've usually broken one of my flip flops. You know, like when you're in your like rubber flip flops and the thong goes as you're chasing a child. Yeah, you know, and you just want to be like, oh my God, you know, why can't I be there? Why can't I? But also, we live in a world and work in a business where it's as my mother used to say, the 0.00000.1. Most beautiful people in the world.
Yeah, it's true. It's not reality.
I mean, when you are on a red carpet and you see Charlize, it's a creature. It is not. You see Halle Berry, it's your jaw drops. But that's not reality. There are these women. But I mean, you've been on red carpets where you just turn around and you just go, you don't even know where to start. And that's what my mother always said, it's the 0.0000001% of the most beautiful women in the world.
And the sad thing is, I think a lot of those women don't feel beautiful.
Probably not. But it's like, you look at them. I mean, you've been on enough red carpets where you're like, there are these women that are just, they're creatures. They're so beautiful, you know, and you can't believe it. And then there's others that you meet, you go, well, God, they photograph well, you know, you know, and then there's some you get up close, you're like, yeah, they don't look so good, you know. But we do live in a world where these particular ones, you know, that you just go, oh my God, you know. As my mother used to say, you could tell which ones they were because they would walk down the carpet and you just watch men's heads explode as they passed by. Just like all the way down, you know. So it's like, how do we get out of it? I mean, one thing is, you know, stay off social media. I don't think any of us are choosing new careers at this point in our lives.
Talking about it too. I think that like you said, awareness is so important for any change. And I think we were living, I would say like even 10 years ago, we weren't as aware of all of this. We were just like, why do I feel so bad about myself? Why do I walk around in my body and don't like my body? And then all of a sudden there's been this explosion of like, oh, you feel that way too? What do you mean? You feel that way too? Oh my gosh, you have self-loathing too because of all these messages that we're getting and that we're told that we have to be and fit into and like, you know, it's smaller, be quiet. Like, and now we're talking about it. So I know in my world, my small world, is that when I look in the mirror, I'm less critical of what I see than I used to, and I'm more loving. And I think it is based on us being aware and talking about it. And now, like when I hear, you know, cartoons talk about, you know, how cute and little the woman is, or like, oh, you look cute, you have nice abs, or whatever the cartoon is. I'm like, wow, it starts so young and we need to be aware of it, especially for our young girls.
I agree. And I think so much of it, and I think just as much as young girls, it's adults too. I think social media really can mess with all of us.
Oh yeah, of course.
You know, and it's messed with me for sure. You know, if I look at one more, you know, perfect flower arrangement, I'm like, I'm going to kill myself. You know what I mean? Like my bathroom, even, you know, I can make it really tight, but I got to tell you, I cannot arrange the shit on the counter right. It never looks right to me. You know, it's like when you go online, like, you know, I'll be on like, I don't know, like the Williams-Sonoma catalog, and you're like, why is it that I have these dishes and these napkins, and when I set the table, it doesn't look like this? Yeah. You know? And I think, you know, again, we've taken aspirational to the point of that is almost detrimental. Because it's too far. We're never going to get there.
No way.
So maybe it's not giving 0 fucks. Maybe it's each J just giving one less fuck.
We're having one more fuck, Roxy.
I like that. That seems kind of That actually is good. You know, and I'm trying to raise a son in a world that isn't trying to explain to him that there's more than the fact that his first girlfriend was hot on Instagram, you know?
Yeah.
I got to tell you, when I saw her pictures, I was like, well, I get it. You know what I mean? Like, I see what he sees.
Right.
But I'm hoping that, you know, again, he's 19. Everyone's like, what's he majoring in? I'm like, drinking beer and chasing girls, as he should be.
Of course.
That is what a 19-year-old sophomore in college should be majoring in, you know? But I am curious to see how he chooses. I know already he really likes girls that are funny.
That's basically
it's in the genes. Yeah.
He also is not scared of girls that are strong.
Also in your family, right?
Genes.
But also, as my mother used to say, he's only ever, you know, yes, his dad's in the picture, but he's really only ever been around women and raised by women who love him. So he really likes women. He's not like, you know, this guy who hates women. He loves women because women have always been really good to him. You know, so it'll be interesting. He always gravitates towards the funny ones.
Oh, do you see him going into like a show business career?
No, he doesn't want to. But then again, I went to college and said I didn't want to. And then I realized I was kind of not qualified to do really anything else. And I often put that history degree to good use. Right. You know, he's sorting it out. He wants to be somehow in the industry, but definitely not in front of the camera.
Okay.
I mean, that's a non-starter as of this week.
Well, Melissa, our time is almost up, but can you do a game with us?
Yes, I'll do a game.
Let's do a game. Thank you so much for sharing so much about your life. When I spoke to you last week, I was like, wow, you are like me. You're like an open book.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's nothing I won't say. That's a problem. That's a slight problem.
Trust me, it's gotten me in trouble.
I know. But then,
and by the way, it will make your children horrified.
I horrify them now.
Oh, just
horrify my husband.
Oh my gosh.
I'm an oversharer, but then I also feel like maybe people trust me because I can't like really keep a secret.
I'm like, fuck it, they're gonna find out.
Yeah.
Like seriously. Like
it's true.
And what's so wrong about talking about like mental health and issues and like, you know, that's the thing. Like people, you're as sick as your secrets, right? So I have no secrets.
But it's true. And it's but what you're saying is true. You got it, you know, there's stuff people are like, you can't talk about that. I'm like, you bore me.
Yeah. You have to be able to be open 100%.
I said in the beginning, when you see those families that it's all perfect and this and that and the other, for sure there's some dark shit going on.
There's like a dungeon, there's like a dungeon cage with like GIMP clothing and
that's so hot, Roxy.
And there's nothing worse than the parents who never say anything is wrong about their children.
Right. That everything is perfect, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not.
Okay, so we're going to play Never Have I Ever.
Never Have I Ever.
Quick disclaimer. We're actually going to have this only for the audio portion of our interview. So if you guys want to listen to it, go to iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts, and go listen to Melissa.
Guys, go straight to the audio. Well, thank you so much, Melissa. We love you and adore you. And where can people find you in your podcast and tell us everything?
Yeah, Melissa Rivers group text on all the platforms you would expect. Subscribe. Check out, my Facebook page, my Insta, you're not going to see like aspirational body kind of shit on my Insta, Twitter, all that stuff. And, hopefully we can do this again. I've got a new book that's coming out Mother's Day.
Oh, what's that book? Tell us about that book.
It's called Lies My Mother Told Me.
We should have started the podcast with that.
Yes.
We should have been like, okay, so your book, tell us about all the lies.
But I'm still in the process of writing it. And it's a humor book.
Okay.
It's a humor book. It's like, there's going to be like 4 stories that are real and the rest are just shit I make up and lies I make up. So, for example, it's very often my mother's take on what actually happened at different historical points in the world.
Oh, okay.
Like, did you know that the French Revolution was started because Marie Antoinette cut bangs? Mr. Maurice of the Champs-Élysées gave her bangs. She came home. She wasn't happy. Louis was not happy. She mumbled something about bring me some ice cream or fuck it, let me just have some cake. And there you go.
And that's how history went down.
Mona Lisa. I think that was, So Mona Lisa, that expression that she has when, like in the painting, it's like that half smile, half not smile. They say that the reason she wanted to be painted like that is because she just had a miscarriage. And she didn't want to show. Something like that. But she didn't want people to think that she was happy because she had just had a miscarriage. Isn't that interesting?
That's depressing.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So now every time you see her, you'll be like, great.
I like to think maybe she had some bad Mexican food for lunch.
Yeah, that sounds like a better story. Let's just think of yours.
Maybe she test drove the car and it wasn't good.
Yeah, so
maybe.
Maybe she was in a conversation with someone she wanted to be in a conversation with. It was like, I
think yours are better. Thank you so much. And
yes, thank you, Melissa.
Good luck with the book. Good luck with the podcast. Good luck with your entire life and your son and your world.
Love it.
Hope we can have drinks sometime. You can tell me all the people that you don't like. Hopefully they're not us.
No, they're not you guys.
Yay. And you have to come back and see us too, Melissa.
And you guys have to come back on my podcast. We'll do another swap.
Fun. We love it.
We are Women on Top Official on Instagram.
And Women on Top Podcast on Facebook.
And I am Tammin Sursock.
And I am Roxy Manning.
And we are
Women.